Hey guys, welcome to another Plant Chores video. In this one, I pretty much want to walk you guys through the garden at my old residence and give you guys some views of how those plants are doing there. Shockingly, amidst all the neglect, there's a lot of new growth and thriving plants. My Anthuriums are doing pretty well, shockingly. I'm also going to focus on how I propagate my Scindapsus and Philodendron in case you guys want to see what props I'll have in tow. That'll be up for grabs soon on Instagram. So pretty much you can look forward to watching me tend to my plants one at a time while taking in some beautiful foliage. And thank you so much if you are returning. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are new, please remember to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this type of content. I really have so much fun making it for you guys and just creating this community where we can all just discuss, troubleshoot, and get into all things planty. So get comfy. I'm gonna dive right in. We're going to start off by checking on some of my Scindapsus props. I have a bunch in this dish of water and lacquer, and basically it's a batch of Scindapsus Silver Lady, as well as some Scindapsus Jade, Satin, Aurea Variegata, as well as some Scindapsus Dark Form. For me, I find using lacquer to prop my Scindapsus particularly helps them to root super fast as opposed to if I used water alone. For those new to this channel, once I see roots emerging on my props, I add Super Thrive at that point so the plant to be can basically start its nutrient uptake process to ensure healthy roots as well as healthy continuous growth. At this point, these look ready to be potted up, so I'm filling, I think it's like 2.5 or 3 inch size pots here with my Utopia Premium Aroid Mix. I fill the nursery pots only halfway up with soil, and then that basically just gives me enough room to plant the props with sufficient space to make sure I cover the new roots as well as the node. I have 8 types of Scindapsus species in my collection. They all have very thick roots, so putting them in this 2.5 inch to 3 inch pot, especially as I'm going to put multiple cuttings, and more than likely you'll see me put 3 max into this pot. This, to me, and this is me leaning on my experience, this size pot and this amount of soil is sufficient for me to not overwater the plant, as well as to ensure that I don't underwater these because Scindapsus are very thirsty in my opinion, especially as they have such thick roots. So that is why I chose this size pot as they accommodate the roots and just the general growth pattern or nature of Scindapsus. Multiple props in a pot always leads to fuller plants. This is pretty much what we're aiming for. In a couple months, those props should turn out, hopefully, once none of them perish, to give us a nice, full, cute little plant that is great for any indoor space. I love Scindapsus for interior decorating. The remainder of the Scindapsus, you can see here those roots are really, really maybe long overdue, honestly, for potting up, but pretty much they root in 3 weeks' time. And well, I just potted all of them up as I did for the Scindapsus Silver Lady. This is my Scindapsus trubii and another small dark form that just underwent the same process as the Silver Lady, basically, and I'm just stacking all of them together because they're all going to be watered with Great White that I use to basically inoculate the plants with some mycorrhizae, which ensures efficient nutrient uptake once they enter soil. Here are my philodendron melanochrysum props. These root perfectly in water. Whether I'm propping using water, which is my number one or primary way to prop my plants, it really is always successful to me. Or if I'm using lacquer or pon to root them, I always add Super Thrive once the roots start to show, meaning that you can use Super Thrive with water alone, or if you're using any media. Even if you're using soil, you can apply it directly to the soil. So in this case, I'm putting the Melanos in clear pots that you saw there. I got those off Amazon. I'll link everything below. Everything you see will also be linked below. And I'm moving on to my philodendron lupinum props. These, as you can see here, also rooted well in water. I don't know if you'll notice, but these roots are so much thinner than the Scindapsus roots. You'll notice that I'm using the same size pots for the lupinum, just clear ones, even though the roots are a lot thinner or thread-like as compared to the Scindapsus, and that's because these are rooted at multiple nodes. What I'm showing you here is basically this one will have to definitely go in a taller pot, whereas these were able to sit nicely in the ones I selected. I just reused a Starbucks cup for this one as I needed some more depth, but not necessarily width. So the Starbucks cups work out great, and I just pile on some moss to ensure that the roots that were still exposed, having used that pot, remain hydrated. I'm going to move on here to my philodendron white wizard. I'm going to check and see what is rooted. It seems like only one cutting has rooted, so this one will go into soil. It's a nice three-leafer, and more than likely I'll just leave these to continue to root. Nothing has grown here. The difference between the white wizard and the knight is that these stems are green, whereas the knight is red and white. So this is it all done. I'm just going to add it to the batch of other plants in preparation to water it with Great White. By the way, if you are interested in getting Great White, you can get it at Casa Farms, and remember to mention Candy and you'll get a 5% off in store. I just mixed the Great White into my 1 gallon spray tank and I water all of them through thoroughly. Because these were water props, I saturate the props. Each pot is saturated pretty much to make sure that the roots are well hydrated before they enter the regular watering cycle of drying out and then watering. And finally, I clean the leaves by spraying them off to prevent any bacterial infection. As new props, I like to keep a close eye on them just in case there's any rotting. So these I'm going to take down to the house. I'm going to start some new props, starting with my Manjula pothos. This is the top cut of my 15-foot vine. Pretty much, I want to start it over to continue to size the leaves up. So I took this top cut and I'm going to remove some of the leaves on the bottom to further expose the nodes. Pothos roots fine in water, but you're going to see me use lacquer here, and that's primarily to stabilize this cutting as it's quite a large one as well as a tall one. The winds have been quite strong here, and I don't want it to get toppled. I also added a stake for additional stability. I'll be sure to update you guys on the progress of that one on Instagram. Next, I'm going to prop my Syngonium no ID here in straight water, as Syngonium root just as easily as pothos. If you have the ID on this Syngonium, please drop me a line in the comments. So now I'm just going to walk you guys through basically what I do on a regular plant chores day. So pretty much I suit up with my tool belt that is well stocked with everything that I need, like my Velcro straps, my clippers, everything that I could just grab on the fly is all strapped onto my waist. And I pretty much just walk through the garden, observing and taking note of what has to be done. Here I'm stopping to check a prop of my marble queen pothos that I put on a plank. This is the mother plant. I just want to have another one going. I'm going to water my anthuriums heavily here because I really have been neglecting this space. And up top is my philodendron mycons that I think I'm going to trim off all of those vines because they're quite bare and probably dead. And I'll just toss those because I do have a lot of mycons props. This is one of my favorite plants, so I always have props in that going just to ensure that I always have a full plant. But yeah, I haven't been in this space frequently or as frequently I would like, so I have to really hydrate my anthuriums. Here's a closer look at my mycons. It is bursting with new growth to the top. In a previous plant chores video that I'll link in the description below, I think I had put in some plugs on camera for you guys to see, and well, they have all basically caught on and thriving in this pot. So I don't feel any way to trim off these basically almost 100% or 80% at least bare vines. I am also an advocate for pruning because this really stimulates or basically just kicks the plant into action as it produces auxins or growth hormones that stimulate even more growth. And I do kind of want it to switch focus into rooting as well, and giving it a good trim usually just allows the plant to basically rejuvenate itself and push new growth. That's all the vines that I clipped off. I'm not going to try and salvage any of that. Like I said, I have a ton of mycons already. This is my Cryptosperma johnstonii. I actually struggle with this plant. I always have either three leaves or less. I don't know if it's just that I can't keep up with the watering right now. And I'm just going to trim off that dead leaf to take it down to two leaves now. And I love staking it as it's such a tall plant, and I just use these orchid clips to just give it some additional support, just to keep the leaves upright. On to this inflow that I'm going to remove. I thought it was successfully pollinated. I guess it was, but the inflow itself is aborting, so I'm going to remove that. This inflow is on my Anthurium Ace of Spades by Crystallinum hybrid. I'm going to give you all a closer look at the foliage itself. It has quite minimal veining, but it is neon. It glows almost, especially against the dark foliage. My variegated Anthurium vitrifolium, it has a minimal variation, but it is variegated. I could always do a close-up for you guys on Instagram. But this plant always has a ton of inflows. I don't know if it's my TPS1 fertilizer. I'm hearing a lot of people on YouTube say that TPS1 is causing the anthuriums to flower abundantly, so it could be that. But yeah, that anthurium always has a ton of inflows. I'm just removing this plant here. My Scindapsus Pictus exotica was growing up on that, and I trimmed it back to make some smaller plants. So I'm just removing that plant. This is my Snow Queen pothos. I put a cutting on a pole here to try and size these leaves up like I did with my Marble Queen pothos that you'll see just now. And while the main stem just needs adjusting onto the pole to continue rooting into it, this is my Marble Queen that's growing beautifully up that pole with the leaves increasing in size as I intended for it to grow. I find pothos are just great to plant style inside my home with. They are such easy clear plants and easy to size up to create drama inside any space, especially when you have them on a pole to just, take advantage of that empty wall space higher up on your walls. This is my overgrown lemon lime philodendron that is just winding all around the space. It has trailed downward in some areas, and I really have to give it a complete cut back. I can't even find where the pot is at this point. This is what I've trimmed off. I've got like 3 or 4 large sections. The leaves are quite dehydrated because this needed to be probably repotted since last year. The stems are quite thick. It is pretty mature. I'm going to chop this up even further into single node cuttings and show you all exactly how I make that chop in case you are curious as to how to propagate your philodendrons or Scindapsus, any of those plants really. So basically I cut 1 inch on either side of the node. This is usually sufficient to rehydrate that cutting. So I'm basically going to put all of the cuttings. This is the top cut that has some nice aerials on it. Primary roots will eventually start to grow from that, and you got a true appreciation of that lemon lime color there. So I'm just going to put all of those in this vessel of water and have it hydrated, and just comment below if you want the cuttings. I'll be so happy to give it to you all rather than just simply throw them away. Once I started adding them to water, you can see how quickly they rehydrated and just fulled back out nicely. It's looking like a full bouquet there. These that haven't been added to water have just got even more dehydrated, but at least you can see the potential. Here's some beautiful variegation that I stumbled upon. This cutting really is nice. I just want to mention that when I'm taking a top cut, I actually take, it's basically 2 nodes in that cutting, and I remove the lower leaf like this, and I just expose the lower node, and that is what I leave to root, so that there are 2 leaves almost to the top and 2 nodes to root. This was just something interesting I want to show you guys. This is so old that the stem has started to wooden. You can see that it's brown in color and how it transitions to wood as it matures. Amazing, right? Until one of you guys come to claim this, I'm just going to put it to receive some indirect light just in this corner like that. And hopefully y'all will come and get it before it starts to root. This is the butt cut of my Philodendron gigas. I took the top cut home. This is my variegated Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. It's going to need a pole extension soon, and it desperately needs a repot. Look at the tiny pot it is in. I'm just giving you all some views as I'm continuing to water. And of course, in the middle of that, this hose pops out. This has been happening so frequently because it needs a clamp, and of course, I have no idea how to even do that. So I'm waiting for the gardener to come and sort me out. So I have just been plugging this back in and moving along because time is of essence. Here's something I'm super excited for. This is an inflow on my Anthurium Zara F4 that I think has been successfully pollinated. This was crossed with Anthurium fingers, so that should be a pretty interesting hybrid if it is successful. This is probably my biggest Anthurium in my collection. That's the Zara F4. It has quite dark foliage, and next to it is my Anthurium Ace of Spades, a hybrid. This one is absolutely stunning. If you're following me on Instagram, you would know that I got a ton of seeds from this as well. I don't know what Anthurium or which Anthurium was the pollen parent, but all the seeds germinated, and you can look out for updates on that. This is my Anthurium magnificum pushing a new leaf, and above that is my Anthurium Brielle by Michelle. I'm just giving you guys some views. This is another magnificum that has some wild veining on it. This is the bud cut of my Philodendron andrianum. Some say that it's synonymous with melanochrysum. The International Aurea Society claim that it is different and it's a smaller version, basically, of the melano. I will keep you guys posted in terms of how the two compare. I have been keeping track of how they both perform and present as they grow. What you're seeing now is my Epipremnum skeleton key that I still haven't gotten on a pole. Here's one of my mature Cebu Blue Pothos props that I recently put on a pole. I love this one. I am growing it out for the house. Soon it's going to need a pole extension. What I want to do is make sure it's growing off the pole now, so I just want to get it back on there for it to continue to root and size up. It's growing so beautifully, and the mature form, it just, is always a winner for me. Let me show you guys the mother plant. It's down in the back here and it's about 12 or 13 feet tall. This is it here. So I pretty much took the top cut that was at the top of the wall and rooted it. And it goes all the way down to there. It really is that bluish silver color and it fenestrates as it climbs. That's just a last look at it. And while I was fixing that, I found this menace, the African snail. I'm not joking when I say I have snail gloves now. Anytime you see me wearing this pink glove, it's because I am getting rid of snails on the compound. It's so essential to have this now. This type of glove, though, I wouldn't recommend. It's really just what I had on hand because it has the waterproof lining on the inside, which makes it hard to grip the actual snail, which has a smooth shell. But I actually recommend having gloves totally separate and apart from your regular gardening gloves, just to deal with these snails that are poisonous. Thankfully, this one was dead. Now I'm just going to take all the pots that basically a plant died and I'm just going to reuse the soil. So I'm just emptying everything into this basin. I try to reuse my amendments when I can. For example, this soil batch has a lot of leca in it that I want to salvage, and the remainder of the soil I leave it out in the sun to bake. And once it turns to this gray color that I know it has been completely dried out and all the organic matter is basically out of it, I reuse it for plants like Sansevieria and just anywhere in the garden that requires a little top up outdoor. This is how I separate the leca from the soil. I pretty much have this wire basket that I think I got from Target probably 10 years ago or something. But I just pour all the soil into the wire basket that still has the leca in it, and I pretty much use it as a sieve. So I put it back into the clear basin. I got that basin from Extra Foods, and I just sift it through like that. So the basket contains all the leca and any large particles that you'll see me continue to pick out any organic matter, dry coconut husk, large perlite. I get all of that out to thoroughly separate leca from any soil. So you'll see me here picking out everything. And I pretty much sterilize the leca by using boiling water, or I just boil it in a pot. and that's it. I highly recommend if you do intend to reuse your lacquer to thoroughly go through it and make sure there's no like coconut husk, no organic matter left in there. Even though you plan to sterilize it or boil it or just run some hot water through it, when you're using lacquer in a hydroponic application, well, my intention is to reuse this hydroponically. You don't want to have any organic matter in there to pollute the water when you water your plants that you intend to grow hydroponically. That is just going to cause root rot. Sometimes after sterilizing, I just continue to use the old lacquer as a basic soil amendment. I was hoping to repot some of my Sansevieria on camera with you guys, but I do not have pots, and they are desperately in need of a repot. In some cases, well, I'm going to pull out the ones that have warped the pot itself, like this one, or this one I think actually has a rhizome coming out. The bottom here is ridiculous. But I don't have what I need to do this. I'm going to have to pop into Grow Right. Remember, if you're shopping at Grow Right, you can mention Candy for 10% off in store. But let me get a good example of a Sansevieria that is really due for repot. When I see roots to the top, that is also an indicator that it needs to be repotted, even if the pot is not warped. But this one really is the worst off. This pot has pretty much become linear. And believe it or not, Sansevieria was the first genus of plants that I started my collection with. These are the size pots and recyclable plastics that I have, which is such a shame because I had the time today to do repotting. I should have planned better. But it is what it is. I'm just going to tidy up this bin so that hopefully when I pop in the next time, things can be more easily accessible. And I'm going to move along. As beautiful as this is, all of this is pomerac flowers on the floor. But it is terrifying because they're going to be like bombs on top of my plants soon, and the entire tree is laden. I'm going to go through some of my water props to see which ones I could utilize those smaller pots for. This is my Philodendron White Wizard. This one has a small Monstera Adansonii as well as a cutting of my Emerald Pothos. These might be rooted and ready to be potted. I think I might just go ahead and pot that up. Above here is my Aglaonema Sterling Silver. This is well rooted. I think I'm going to go ahead and pot this up. I keep rotting this plant and rerooting it and rotting it and rerooting it for years. This is my relationship with that plant, and I love it so much for the color of the foliage. By the way, I found this in the sifted soil. I went ahead and repotted this. I remembered which plant it was. I'm going to put it right back here. It is a smaller version of this. I can't remember what's the name of it. I'll put in some footage to show you guys the flower that it grows. So hopefully if you know what it is, you can comment below. But basically the little plant had the same spots that you saw there on the stem. So I figure it's a smaller one of that. I'm just going to put it right where this one is happily growing. And I'm moving on to my Sterling Silver Aglaonema. Let me show you guys the roots that have grown. They are quite dense and thick. They are definitely ready to be potted up. I'm just going to clean it up, removing the brown leaves and that yellowing leaf, and I'm going to go ahead and pot it up. I'm going to pot up the Aglaonema in this pot. This is not a pot that I would recommend for plants that need to be evenly moist. If you need like more aeration, like for example, I keep rotting this one, I would use this one. But pretty much the cavities I find do not like contain the water or moisture. I have to tilt the pot for moisture to get into those cavities. So I won't recommend it for plants that need even moisture, but plants that need to dry out. Like I feel like this might work for this Aglaonema. I'm gonna try it here and I'll let you all know how it performs. But that pot in general, I am not a fan of. But pretty much I'm just going to give it a go here because this is what I have on hand and I feel like it might stop this one from rotting. So we'll see how it goes if I change my mind on it. But this is it all potted up. Okay, so now I'm at home. I left the old residence and I'm putting my electric hose to charge. Pretty much if you're on the fence about getting this one, I 100% 10 out of 10 recommend this. This thing saves me so much time. It is the Probably the best tool that I have and would recommend in this hobby is like 15 US for it or something, and it's the most convenient thing. You see me use this time and time again. Pretty much, I just want to show you guys how I charge it here using a standard USB charger, and that's it. I'm going to move on to staking my Begonia maculata. I love using chopsticks for this and orchid clips just to keep it upright. I have this one growing in pond with a lecker reservoir, and pretty much the water line is maintained at the top of the lecker so that it stays hydrated all the time. It is still acclimating to living inside of my home. This leaf actually got burnt, but another is on the way, so I know it's fairly happy, and I'm just going to continue to monitor it. So as I did at the old residence, once I'm watering, I look to see whatever quick wins I could get along the way. So in this case, oh, well, just as a side note, I like using these cover pots so that I can water in situ. But yeah, as I was saying, quick wins like removing these little yellow leaves so that on plant chores days, I don't really have a ton to do. So while I'm watering, I kind of just get these little bits out of the way. This plant I think is also still acclimating like the Begonia maculata. I still haven't completely figured it out. This is one I imported last year, like September or so. So I still haven't fully figured it out. It's giving me peace lily vibes, but I still can't be certain. It's getting brown spots still. So I'll keep you guys posted. Here's a little watering hack I learned from YouTube. Basically, it's the taco test. What it involves is you gently squeezing succulent leaves to see how soft they are before actually watering. So if it's soft, then I water because I really am terrible at growing these types of plants. So I need to do this check before I water, otherwise I will rot these types of plants. Sometimes I'm actually able to see creases on the leaves, similar to when Sansevieria or cacti are super dehydrated, where the leaves tend to like almost crease and create fissures along the length of the leaves. So that is like, I think that's when it's really way past gone the time for watering. So I try not to wait that long. So I use the taco test to try and find that balance. I must say my Dischidia ovata is really loving inside and receiving that west-facing sun on an evening from 4:30 to 6. It's pushing out a bunch of new growth at multiple points in the plant, and I'm super happy about that. So I pulled this one down because I want to backfill it just to fill those gaps that you see in there. So I just gently raise it and I backfill pretty much. Another telltale sign that your plant is crying out for water is when the leaves start to curl inward. So this is my Scindapsus platinum. It's pretty cooled. It could be worse, but that's a telltale sign for me to pull it down and give it a water. Another really like big indicator is when the soil starts to pull away from the pot. For my plants growing in pond, and this is my Hoya Matilde, I water when the pond looks like a chalky white and there's no condensation visible from the outside. Once it's watered, it turns a dark gray and you're able to see the water, especially if you're growing in clear vessels. I love using clear vessels for that reason when I'm growing in semi-hydro. For these, this is my lupinum. By the way, it took a month for someone to realize that I use that glass as a cover pot, but pretty much I just have to empty these vessels that have some excess water in them. And my last task for this plant chores video is to basically reroot my Aglionema cutlass. I am absolutely positive it's completely rotted. These roots look like if they were deflated and then I watered them and they rotted off. So it seems like I missed a watering. I just can't get the watering right with most Aglionema. I really struggle with them. So pretty much I'm just going to chop off the rotted tissue. I chop back until I see fresh, healthy tissue. And luckily for me, they root well in water. I don't fill the water line too high, but I do try to cover multiple nodes in case the stem continues to rot. So I just fill it up to here, and usually that is, sufficient for it to root for me. But that's my last task for this video. I just want to end the video by giving you guys some more views of the garden. These are the ones that I've left back at the old residence that still have to come and be styled into the greenhouse and eventually into my home. This is my Philodendron Red Anderson that I'm still absolutely obsessed with. I do have props in tow for this. If you would like one, you can comment below. I can make arrangements. And pretty much all of these are still doing well here. The iguana has not gotten it, and fallen fruit hasn't, destroyed them. This is my Syngonium chiapens that I do think I've showed you guys before, and this is my fuzzy petiole that I've started over. That was once 10 feet tall. I love starting over my plants to continue to mature them. And this is my Anthurium fingers. I have a ton of them because I love them. It is definitely my number one recommended plant if you want to get into Anthurium. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching till the end. Please remember to like and subscribe, leave me a comment, share with your friends who might, value this information. And I'll see you guys in the next one.